Hello, everyone. Welcome to our roundtable discussion. What is Gothic Practice with the Internet Ghost Collective? Uh, on behalf of the symposium organizers, I'm very happy you could join us. If at any time you have any questions or concerns, if you're here in person, find a person with a volunteer or organizer badge. If you're online, please ask in the chat. We have Jess running the chat this morning, so she would be happy to answer your questions. You can DM or just chat her. We are being recorded, and it may be posted on our symposium website at a later time. If this will pose a problem, please turn off your camera or, I don't know, hide your face. Hide your beautiful faces. Um, we have tried to build in plenty of breaks, but we understand if anyone needs to step away for a moment during one of our sessions. While we don't have a dedicated quiet room ourselves, our library has a reflection room, which is room 2318 on the second floor. Restrooms are right behind us. Vending machines are on the first floor if you need them. And we encourage everyone to use the hashtag Gothic Practice 2026 when you're posting about the symposium today. And as the symposium is focused, at least in part, on creative critical work, we're going to invite all participants to engage with material both creatively and critically as we go along. So if you feel so inspired, feel free to do creative note-taking, make art, anything like that. Speaking of which, the members of the Internet Ghost Collective, who I will introduce in a moment, wanted us to kind of engage in creative work as oh oh that scared me. Talk about a ghost in the machine. Okay. Whew. Okay. They wanted us to engage in some creative work. Um, um, whether that be note-taking, artistic work, poetry, whatever you feel moves you, or maybe you don't feel moved. And so we have a slide deck, a Google slide deck that you should feel free to add to. Claim a slide as your own if you would like, and add art or anything that inspires you as we're going along. And Jess has put a link to that in the chat. Google Slides are fairly easy. I just started playing around with them and figured things out. Jess can like make one as she goes along, but it's fairly intuitive. And you know, if it gets messy, that's part of the fun. Uh, but yes, please claim a slide for yourself and do with it as you see fit. Um, and for those of you that are in the room, we have art materials on the tables if you would like. There's markers, pens, glue, go wild if you would like.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Do it, yeah. Um, yeah. So now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the members. I think oh, did we lose Erica? You let Erica in.
I
Oh,
don't have.
okay,
Yeah,
I can.
sorry.
Uh, okay, so I want to introduce the members of the Internet Ghost Collective: Megan Dubrain Molay, Lena Henriksen, Erika Kivstad. Did I say that right, Erica? Oh, she's frozen. Is she frozen?
Easton.
Kivstad. And I'm Cherokee. And today we're going to be talking about Gothic practice, how we came to it as a group, and what it might be or what it might not be. Um, but before we do that, Internet Ghost Collective, I would love for everyone to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about your research interests and yeah, who you are. So Megan, you want to get us started?
Yeah, sorry, I was just doodling in Google Slides. Hi, I'm Megan DeBrain Molay. To give you a little bit of context about where I'm coming from institutionally, I am currently permanently employed at Winchester School of Art, which is an art school that was purchased by the University of Southampton in the 1990s. So I'm part of the University of Southampton as well. And my research is on remix adaptation and unoriginal monsters. But at the moment, I'm looking at metaphors of salvage, which is why this wreck is behind me, because I'm interested in, I guess, more violent ways of thinking about appropriative work and appropriative metaphors. Lena, do you want to go next? Because I see you next on my screen. And then
Yeah.
we mustn't forget Shara at the end.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Lina, and I teach creative writing at Malmö University in Sweden. And I do research on monsters, primarily in the context of creative work. I'm quite interested in how to apply potentially thinking about creative blocks, so writing anxieties or these things through the figure of the monster. So I work with stuff I call monster writing and monster methods. I'm also the director of the research group, the K3 Monster Lab, and everyone who is at all interested in doing monster research, you're of course welcome to Google us. If you do like a Malmö University Monster Lab, we should come up, and you can always contact me if you want to be on our mailing list. We do stuff both at the university but also beyond it. And the Internet Ghost Collective, Shara, Megan, and Erika have all been part of actually making this lab happen. So I think the Internet Ghost Collective really has their like claws in most things that's been happening the past few years, at least in my academic life. That's it from me. Erika, do you want to be the next one and then ending with Chera?
Sure. I think I am actually functioning now in the sense that my internet isn't going in and out continually, but yeah, hopefully I will remain present. Hi, my name is Erika Kvistad. I wish I was there in person. I'm an associate professor of English at the University of Southeastern Norway, which is in Norway, in a variety of locations kind of scattered through Norway. I think about myself at the moment as a literature and media scholar, but I sort of very much started out in literature. And throughout my career, really, my research interests have been sex and horror in various formats, which in a lot of academic contexts kind of makes me the weird one, but not in this one, fortunately. So I'm very happy to be part of the Internet Ghost Collective. Cue Shara.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cherokee. I'm a professor of film and media studies in the English department at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, in the United States. Uh, my area of research has been zombies and zombie culture for the longest time. But one of my passions is ghost hunting technologies, and haunting in general. And the Internet Ghost Collective has definitely encouraged that and encouraged me to go in some very creative directions with that. So I'm very thankful for them. Uh, and yeah, I guess I will get started with the first question to the group, which is uh, we are all members of something called the Internet Ghost Collective, which we've just been talking about. Anyone willing to kind of tell everyone a bit how we met and how we formed this group and came up with the super awesome name, Internet Ghost Collective? Go for it,
I
Megan.
think I think the meeting up bit was my fault, and then the Internet Ghost Collective was, I can't remember whose joke that was anymore, but essentially it was, I want to say 2023. I had just become permanently employed. I had just been moved to a contract that had research in it, and they were said, do something that you want to do. And then I immediately realized that I didn't have any networks at the place that I was working, and that all of the networks I had were kind of very instrumentalized. So I was only reaching out to people to get stuff done and not to just kind of, explore things creatively or figure out what it was we actually wanted to do. Um, and at the same time, because I had also transitioned from like a literature background to an art school background, I was trying to figure out what it meant to do artistic research and to do practice-based research in sort of a Gothic studies context. And I had these sort of links to Lena and Rika and Shara from different things. So really, in a lot of ways, it was just us sort of deciding together, well, should we just get together? Should we just make stuff? Let's not make it about work, but let's see what comes out of it. Because it felt like we were all in a place at that point where we could really use that kind of discussion. And then I don't want to monopolize the answer, but I guess the Internet Ghost Collective kind of became the way that we would always label our Zoom or Teams meetings. So it would be like the Internet Ghost Collective makes zines, or the Internet Ghost Collective rides again, or, and that would kind of always be the traditional title of the meeting group that we gathered. And then eventually we just started calling ourselves that in a professional context also. I don't know if there's anything anyone else would like to add to that.
This is actually kind of more backstory than I previously had, Megan, about your role in kind of in setting this up. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because I think something that you've, I mean, the whole group, but not least you, have always been very good at when it comes to our work together is focusing on not instrumentalizing everything, sort of not turning everything into a kind of an output or a product, or making everything about efficiency, but really sort of maintaining the focus on kind of play and creativity as much as possible, which, I think we all feel sort of pulls towards being productive as much as possible. And it's I think it's very much kind of part of the ethos of the group that we try to at least not only be productive. But yeah, I mean, I guess one of the reasons I like the name of this group is because it started out as a joke, and it sort of was kind of taught me in a way that you can actually do slightly stupid things in academia and people will still take you seriously. Wonderful.
Anything to add, Mina?
I think it covers everything that needs to be. I think because we're so long range that like we sit in each of a different country, a lot of our other ways of understanding what we're doing is happening in writing and in these sort of tools that we are given to create these collectives and networks and meetings. So everything happens in meeting invites, in emails, in Google Docs. So a lot of these inside jokes like the Internet Ghost Collective just sort of comes up because that's how we are being asked to navigate long range collectives. But yeah, I honestly also don't remember who came up with the Internet Ghost Collective or why it stuck. And I would be sort of interested in doing some email archive, kind of digging into the genealogy.
After a while, I think it's one of those, like, it was the group, right? Like the collective itself has become bigger than the individual members. Um, but yeah, we kind of mentioned practice-led, creative-based research. And I'd love to hear from any of you, and I can chime in as well, but how that has historically factored into the group's work. And I think we've talked about that a little, kind of the joy of making sometimes for academic purposes, but sometimes just as a group of academics who want to make in the same space.
Oh, but yeah, no, I think I'm one of those who are like the less making person. So I feel bad for taking the floor here because I'm very traditionally, whenever people ask me to do something creative, I just go to writing. But we have managed to, Erika has done this really amazing workshop on how to do video essays. Megan has done a scene workshop for us. Tara has like shown us how to work with is twine. Is that's yes. So I think I have learned a lot and also have my boundaries pushed a bit, like personal boundaries and my perfectionism. Because when I sit and write, I can nerd around with it forever, and I don't have to show it to anyone. But when you are in a workshop setting like this, I think it's been really nice to do something that takes shape fairly quickly. Because when you write, it takes time, and it's in a Word document, and you can basically edit it until forever. So that was just my quick sort of 5 cents that perfectionism wise, it has pushed me a bit, and it has been good.
I think this is very characteristic of the Internet Ghost Collective that everyone is going to say, you know what, everyone else in this collective is awesome. And actually, I don't do very much. And the stuff that I do is not very interesting. So I'm just going to jump in quickly to counter what Lena has just said about not being the creative one in the group, because, you know, she does absolutely fantastic stuff with creative writing, but also, you know, a few years ago, we had the chance to do an Internet Ghost Collective workshop at Malmö University, where we also sort of did things like, for example, go around and make audio recordings and construct, I guess, a kind of workplace soundscape horror. So there's been a lot of, I think, discovery that the stuff that we're doing is actually creative. Maybe also the stuff that we hadn't thought of as creative previously, like the boring workplace stuff, the doing of emails. So that's something I've really learned from everyone else in the group.
Yeah, I think I was also about to start my note on this by saying that, well, I'm obviously the least creative one out of us. So we all want that title, I guess. But no, I mean, like, you know, sort of counter to what Lena was saying. I think, I mean, creative writing totally counts as creativity to my mind. But I do also think that and I think, yeah, creative writing is kind of that's sort of mainly the medium that I approach this stuff through, although also increasingly a little bit through things like video essays and things like Twine games. But yeah, I mean, what you just said, Lena, made me think about how important it's been for me in my work with the group to do stuff that I'm not good at, or that I'm not like at all initially good at. Because when you mentioned the video essay workshop, I was like, well, that was basically just me coming in and saying, I don't know how to make a video essay. And just sort of we just kind of figured it out. And I think Cher was actually the one who ended up mostly knowing how to do it. So it very much has been a way of moving away from perfectionism, moving away from things that are finished and things that are kind of well formed and things that are easy to get somebody to publish or pay attention to or praise, like sort of yeah, again, to move away from productivity in that sense.
Well, and I'll just add one of my favorite things is that uh, a lot of times when we have meetings, we are like, let's learn something, let's learn a new skill, and not so that, oh, yes, so that I can tomorrow turn it into a paper. No, just I want to learn this. I have the freedom to be bad at it. I have the freedom to kind of giggle as I'm doing it and do it wrong. And it's been very liberating for me in my work to have that freedom to fail. Um, and also, it's been inspiring to see the ways that these people think and how they put things together. I mean, I think anytime you can get with people who are outside of your discipline or outside of your nation or that, you get these perspectives and you're like, oh, wow, it could be done. I've forgotten it can be done other ways. And so I think part of our creative practice too is that kind of the joy of different perspectives. But now I get to ask the fun question. So how did Gothic practice kind of grow out of our creative practice? Where did it come from? What is this thing called Gothic practice, everyone? Where did it start?
I want to kind of locate this a little bit in a couple of senses with Timothy Jones at Gothic Studies, partly because he's one of the editors of Gothic Studies, and he's been the person who we have worked with on creating this special issue, but also because back in like 2009, he wrote an article called "The Canniness of the Gothic Genre's Practice," where at one point he says, perhaps the Gothic is something that is done rather than something that simply is. And the idea that the Gothic is something that is done or something that you could do, I think just sort of seized all of us a little bit when we were thinking about what we might want to make a special issue around and what might sort of appeal to all of our interests. It sort of came out of that idea, I think. But this is just me trying to remember back.
Well, I mean, I guess another practical reason that the practice stuff became the academic stuff is because, like, from a practical perspective, we wanted some money to be able to come together and, you know, do something in person as well. So we did a little brainstorming session about like, well, what do we need? What rationalization is needed to get this kind of funding, or to kind of pull this together in a way that people will take seriously? And then actually, as Erika said already, we kind of discovered that you didn't have to do much, that a lot of the stuff that we had already done incidentally was stuff that could get us kind of small pots of funding, and did get us small pots of funding, and then eventually ended up with this Gothic Practice special issue. I guess is another way to do something fun, because I don't think any of us necessarily needed it from a research outputs perspective or from that administrative perspective, but as a way to be like, hey, does the stuff that we're doing also hold up, or does it make sense if we sort of put it into an academic context, or if we try and pair Gothic studies research, which I guess tends a little more perhaps towards literary or film or cultural studies, if we try and pair that with creative research or artistic research.
Yeah, I think that it was kind of like a test case, and also, of course, like I think certainly for my part, I really wanted to see what other people would do with it, or to what extent it was an idea that resonated with other people working in Gothic studies, which I think it really turned out to. So it wasn't just something that existed like in our own heads, it was something that existed for other people as well.
How about for you, Chara?
We've been doing, like, we actually started, I know we wrote the CFP, but then we did some workshops. And I think that was too, like, are there other people out here that are kind of interested in this idea of what would it be like to do something Gothically, like, and this kind of combination of creative and critical, and seeing that there were people out there, like finding our people has been a wonderful part of this process. But I think it was also the impetus, like you said, like we couldn't be the only people that had this itch that needed to be scratched, to put it in very icky terms. There you are.
Yeah, well, and as we were kind of talking about what we were doing, because I guess a lot of us first came to it from this perspective of horror, which I guess does have a little bit more to say about what it looks like as a practice, as an artistic practice, whereas we were sort of thinking about the Gothic, and we were thinking about these definitions of the Gothic as a literary genre, or as a mode, or of kind of Gothic aesthetics as it relates to architecture, or you know, that sort of thing. And then trying to think if that applied to our own creative practices, and if so, how, and if not, then what other kind of vocabulary did we maybe need to be thinking about to communicate what it was that we were doing to other folks in Gothic studies.
So then it becomes, yes, the group comes together, writes a CFP, gets some like-minded people as contributors. And as you may or may not know, we just finished editing the special issue for the journal Gothic Studies. It should be coming out fairly soon. People are signing contracts and all of that kind of stuff. And again, some of the contributors will be presenting at the symposium. So, Internet Ghost Collective, my friends, what can you tell us all about the issue, including what's in it, but also, you know, what did we learn from it? Not everyone at once. Come on.
I guess one, Yeah, because when you said the manuscript is finished, I had a moment of sort of pure horror and like you've jinxed us now. Um, no, it basically is done. But one of the things that's been interesting for me about this, and this is the weirdly, this is the second special issue I'm making with both in total and with Lena Henriksen specifically. And the previous one was also quite weird. Was an issue of women, gender, and research. That was about monsters. But like to an even greater extent, this one has been both a really huge issue. I think like we've really tested the boundaries of how long Gothic studies will allow you to make an issue just physically. Um, but it's also been quite a complicated one in terms of, we've had a lot of different mediums. We've had mixtapes, we've had videos, as in the case of Andy's work. We've had a lot of images. And yeah, just a lot of different mediums at once. So in a way, I feel like the last few days of kind of trying to fix a lot of last minute things has been a kind of like sort of the unsexy aspect of Gothic practice, where you realize why people aren't doing Gothic practice all the time, but are sometimes doing more like just regular practice. Would have been a little bit more straightforward in some ways. But yeah, I think one of the things that I found most kind of surprising about the process was how many people wanted to be involved in it. I think we ended up with an absolutely fantastic group of contributors. But we also had to not take in a lot of amazing contributors. And I think that was probably the hardest part of the whole thing, because I don't think any of us are very comfortable in that kind of like gatekeeping what Gothic practice is kind of role. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts on the issue.
Yeah, so for me, a couple of the interesting things about putting together the issue echo what Erika is saying, in that we didn't want to be gatekeepy, but also in the end, we found we really did have to sort of make a decision about what practice at least meant for us, in terms of, what were the things that we thought hung together based on the submissions we had? So was it going to be about pedagogical practice mostly, or was it going to be about artistic practice, or was it going to be about praxis in the sort of Marxist criticism sense? And we had, not misunderstandings, but we did have a lot of conversations with contributors about those differing understandings about what practice means, because I do feel like it's a word that, like the Gothic, is sort of used to describe almost anything, within some bounds. And that was, I guess, kind of shaped by who we are and what we felt that we were able to edit as well. So we did have creative critical submissions. Like Erika said, we had films like Andy's film. We also had methods like ethnography or autoethnography. So Karen Smith's contribution to the issue is about the Bat Cave, which is a goth club. And she kind of shares memories of that and some ephemera from that. And then Hannah Singleton, who's also in the room, talks about seance as a practice, but specifically how it relates to archival research. So talking a bit about how the researcher acts as a medium to kind of channel these voices from the archive, both figuratively, but perhaps also literally. And I feel like in the end, we tried to go for kind of a scattershot approach, where we're like, all right, well, we won't have too many in any one kind, and we want the issue to really sort of have one of all of these different kinds of practice. So you'll see a lot of really different approaches in the special issue. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of challenges, but I think actually I was really pleased and pleasantly surprised by how willing the editors of Gothic Studies were to kind of work with us to figure stuff out. Because one of the issues, for instance, that they supposed to us right at the beginning about creative critical research, and when we said, oh, can we also have, artworks and mixtapes? was how to make it clear to the readership that this was critical work, right? Because the mission of the journal is produce critical research about Gothic studies. So there was a little bit of interpretation work to be done in the form of explaining how creative critical research is also critical research. But it felt like they were very ready to hear that argument as well. So I think we're all really grateful to the editorial team for that also.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I was reminded of is because now we started out with, we started this group as having a lot of fun, and we meet and we do stuff, and it's not about it being perfect, and we can make mistakes, and everything is all right. And then when we wanted to expand that to a academic um, special issue, we started up with this sort of massive free range, like everything could be possible. And what even is creative, like Gothic creative practice, nobody knows. We will define it together with anyone who is interested in it. And then that's where you start, and that's the excitement, and that's where everything is still fluid and in flux. And then as you go along, obviously the gatekeeping starts, and the definition starts, and the limitation starts of the medium and of what is recognizably academic enough to go into a special kind of issue. Or so then all of the domestication starts, like the domestication process. So you start out with this wild beast that could be anything, it should be anything, and then you see it meeting the world and slowly taking kind of a very static shape. And I think that's the challenge properly sometimes when you have these ideas and you're working within certain boundaries. And you might have these ideologies and this excitement and this should like break all the boxes, but at the end of the day, you will like depend on some of the boxes in order to get this thing out and have it live, and potentially perhaps create something else, so somebody else will read it and then it will go on to do something else. So I think that to me sometimes there is that awakening of, yes, I begin and I start out with everything, and then the further you go, the more tamed and domesticated it becomes to some extent, with the gatekeeping questions and with the questions of, yes, we put out what is Gothic practice as an open question, but at the end of the day we are the pruners of what ultimately makes the cut. So obviously what my hope, and I think also of the other editors, is that this issue is going to go out into the world and do stuff we could not in any ways have predicted, and that other people will take it and run with it in some different directions. So I think that was sort of my quick 2 cents, that it comes from its playfulness and ends typically in something that is to some extent a bit more normative than what you always hope for when it starts. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say I think domestication is a really good way of putting it, and I also like what you say about working within a structure. I mean, I have this sort of like kind of weird concept in my mind of academic work as kind of always being a little bit like being a Gothic protagonist, in that you are always inside this structure that you are trying to understand, and that doesn't necessarily always have your best interests at heart kind of completely. Um, and I think that sort of trying to do something within an existing structure and with everyone sort of doing their best to help you. That's very much been part of the process here. We got a question from Cora that I actually am not sure how best to answer. What sort of research resources did you explore in those conversations about creative critical boundaries? I think my experience was that one of the things that was tricky about it was not quite knowing or not sort of quite being able to find a model of previous research that kind of supported exactly what we wanted to do. But Megan, you might have a different take on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we sort of started by looking within Gothic Studies and also in past issues of Gothic Studies, the journal, which is how we sort of came across Tim Jones's work on Gothic praxis or Gothic practice, because his is much more from that kind of I guess, philosophical or Marxist critical standpoint, where he's talking about habits and praxis in a slightly more abstract way. But then, as we were researching and as we were in conversation with some of our contributors, we also discovered, for example, a lot of work that had taken place in the space of Afro-Gothic research, where they were sort of looking at the ways that, so like Leila Taylor, for instance, they were looking at, oh yeah, thanks for sharing the CFP. I can share like a really good example will be in the bibliography of our introduction, but essentially, yeah, so we looked at some sources from Gothic studies. I think we have as well a body of readings from artistic research and how artistic research sits in the academy. And from there, I'm trying to think if we actually include much kind of literature on pedagogy practice. I don't know, Cherry, can you think of any other fields that we scraped from while we were trying to decide that framework?
I was just going to say, I remember another thing that was present for me in particular was at the time I was learning how to make kind of scholarly video essays, and I thought a lot about videographic criticism, about that kind of approach of trying to deal with a critical topic in an aesthetic way and in an emotional way, and a kind of in a performative way, rather than in a kind of directly argumentative or kind of explicit way. So that was something I thought about a lot.
And I feel like we did a lot of research into practice-based research, what people were doing, as you said, kind of more artistic. And then Tim Jones, and like seeing if there'd been any other Gothic practice, not finding much, if anything. But yeah, it was kind of finding our way in the dark and creating a bibliography as we went along. And understanding it was probably a very imperfect bibliography, but it was what we had to work with. Which is, I think it fits nicely into that idea that Lena was talking about. Like, you have these great, wild, wonderful ideas are going to be so expansive, and then like to fit it into academia, you kind of have to domesticate it. I think with everything, we kind of like at some point you just have to work with what you have too. But now I get to ask the big question, which is what is Gothic practice? And I know as one of the group, we had to tackle this as editors because we wrote an introduction to this special issue. But I also know as one of the group that this was not an easy task, and we all kind of scratched our heads and went, I know we proposed this. I know we had a CFP. I know we brought people in, but can we actually answer this question? And so, yeah, the $1 million question is, what is Gothic practice? How do we understand it, or how do you understand it?
I think to just sort of throw myself on this immediately, in the hope of getting backed up. Yeah, I think as I sort of slightly alluded to earlier, I think one of kind of my way into the concept of Gothic practice is sort of the idea that what we're doing in academic research, and I mean, really, and I think kind of all academic research, like no matter how sort of STEM like it is, for instance, and no matter how far it sort of theoretically might seem to be away from emotions and from the body, I think academic research always does involve emotions and the body because it's done by people, by and large. And I think for me, one of the benefits of the idea of Gothic practice is that it allows you to sort of attend to that aspect of academic work where you are a person working within a structure that, maybe doesn't want you there, maybe kind of wants you there too much, maybe like in the back rooms is kind of horrifically indifferent to you. And you're trying to solve the mysteries in this space, And so it kind of becomes a way of thinking about what you do as an academic that allows you to both attend to the kind of structural difficulties of academic work, while at the same time also attending to the thrilling aspects of it. That's very convoluted, but basically, I kind of think all practice to an extent is Gothic practice.
I mean, I'm going to maybe take a literal. I agree completely and absolutely with everything that Erica has said. And I also think that that answer has been really shaped by who contributed to the special issue. So our understanding of it as it exists now is really based on kind of the people in the room with us for that discussion, which is mostly academics, mostly people working in Gothic studies. So for me, that definition of what is Gothic practice is really kind of about practitioners in Gothic studies. So people who define themselves as part of that kind of Gothic studies community who also practice. What that means in terms of who's contributing to the research, if it's like permanent academics, if it includes kind of independent researchers, those are all kind of questions that Gothic studies as a field is grappling with and academia is grappling with. And is definitely also an issue that came up while we were working on assembling the issue as well. Thinking about things like, well, who actually does get the time and the space to be in the room for this conversation? And how does that impact the kinds of conversations that we're able to have? And what does that say maybe about the kind of conversations that we want to be having after this? So yeah, very literally speaking, Gothic practice is something that is done by people working in Gothic studies who practice.
Yeah, I think that's just to sort of hop in super briefly. I think that makes a lot of sense, Megan. And yeah, it was something we talked about a lot. And I think another dimension of this also is that the kinds of sort of creative critical boundary crossing type work that we were encouraging in this issue can sometimes be something that's more available to some people than others, depending on, for instance, the stability of their academic position, because sometimes you can get in a position where maybe something is seen as sort of too creative to count as critical work, etc. So in a sense, sort of it can be a privilege to be able to do this kind of boundary crossing work. And I think that's kind of an aspect of it as well. But sorry, I wonder.
Were you about to say a bit more, Erika?
No, I was just about to hand over to you.
Okay. Yeah, no, all of this I co-sign, and I think if from a personal perspective, I think I have approached a Gothic practice I come from gender studies. I have a background in gender studies, and obviously there is apologies. My dog is awake and unhappy with the lack of attention, so now he's like digging out some toys and grumbling in the background. But I have a background in gender studies, and obviously there is quite a big sort of interest in performativity. So perhaps instead of asking what is something, you ask how is it performed or what does it do. So applying a concept or anything like that, then instead of looking at so what is it, asking what does it do. Yeah, exactly, Cora. It actually even looks like him. So I've been doing that, especially when it comes to monster theory, where I'm obviously inspired by people like Jeffrey Durham Coyne, who asks about the monster as something that always escapes categorization, that always escapes definition, that is also only understood through the traces it leaves behind. So you understand it by what does it do, and therefore what traces has it left behind. So you can never fully capture it. That was also what happened with, obviously, when you try to capture it in a special issue like we did here, you cannot. It has already then moved someplace else because you cannot capture the monster in one static form. So I think, to me, I'm interested in Gothic practice as this approach to a kind of performative understanding of being or ontology or relational understanding of ontology. So about how is something in becoming constantly and what happens when you throw the Gothic at it in order to understand those processes of becoming. And now, like Erika especially has already mentioned that, like also how we have been working, and Megan, and obviously also you, Chara, like how we've been working within an academic setting. And I really like what you said, Erika, that it's a bit like being a Gothic heroine, trying to work within academia sometimes, that you are in this Gothic setting. Because I kind of think academia is this sort of bureaucratic Gothic space where there is all these rules and regulations you kind of have to follow, and there are these doors you're not allowed to open, because if you do, there are certain consequences, and you never know. Like, don't go here, don't do that, and you're not always told why that is. And there is these rules around how do you become recognizably, properly academic, and those were also the rules we were trying to follow with this special issue. But there will always be something that falls outside of that definition, that cannot be understood within that mold. And I think Gothic practice to me is an attentiveness and a playfulness around what falls outside of the mold, and how can we perhaps sneak it back inside again, and what do we create of weirdnesses when we follow the rules. Maybe some sort of now I cannot remember the term for it. It's an internet term, so I should, but I cannot. I'm starting to ramble at this point. I will leave the rest to you guys.
Trying to think what the internet term is. Tell me if you come up with it.
Yeah, but what's it called? It's when you follow the rules, but you do it in a way that harms the person who asked you to do it.
Malicious compliance.
Yes, exactly. Malicious compliance.
I love that, because I was just thinking that, like, yes, I agree with everything everyone said about Gothic practice. But for me, I've been very aware of the fact that I'm now a full professor. I have, in some ways, more freedom than I have ever had in my career, although that comes with a lot of, like, risk burdens and all of that. But wow, my solid gold shoes are pinching my feet kind of problem. Reaching that point, I realized that I think one of the things that I really loved about and kind of grasped onto with Gothic practice was that I felt safe enough to push the boundaries. I was in a position where I could. I was protected enough. I'm in the US, I have tenure, I'm a full professor now. I've been around long enough in my department, they'll let me do things. And so I could say, like, oh, hey, what if I took my entire class on a ghost tour? Of the city. What if I proposed a symposium? Those kinds of things that would have been harder earlier on. But it also has, I think, Gothic practice, one of the things is it has also encouraged me to really think about my place in Detroit much more than any of my research previously ever has. And I think for me personally, a lot of Gothic practice, again, I like Lena, what do you do? I find myself kind of engaging with questions of this city in which I work, which I live near, really thinking through kind of like the embedded histories, the hidden things. And so taking kind of a Gothic perspective on something that I hadn't before. And so that to me is kind of at the heart of my Gothic practice is when I kind of take that Gothic sensibility and say, but I want to look at this now. And I now have the freedom to do that, which has been marvelous and amazing, and I've learned a lot. But I know not everyone has that. And so I am trying to find ways to also kind of do that malicious compliance where I'm like, how can I let my students experience some of this? How can I let other people around me that I have some agency to help? But it isn't always easy, as we all know, if we're in an academic setting. Any other thoughts on that before I turn it over to our audience?
I think there's a question from Cora in the
Yeah.
Oh,
chat.
awesome.
For Megan and Tara, have either of you felt like the socio-political shifts in the last couple of years in the US has limited or shaped your Gothic practice?
It's kind
You
of
want to
shaped
go?
me and Lena as well, in that we're not in the US right now.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Do you want to go first, Megan, or?
Well, I have a US passport, but I haven't lived in the US for probably about 20 years. So for me, the socio-political shift, like I was already alienated from the US, and the socio-political shift has just made everything more alienating. Um, but I will say that it's been interesting to see it bring some folks in the US Academy, I guess, into alignment with the attitudes that I've also seen in the UK, which is where I work at the moment. So in the wake of lots of funding cuts and government shifts and horrible policy, attacking trans colleagues and attacking migrant colleagues and all of this kind of stuff. There aren't necessarily a lot of people left in the wake of that, but the people who are left are really done. And it's been kind of liberating actually to be able to have those conversations with people where you can be really frank about what the problems are, how fed up we all are about them, and that actually a lot of us aren't interested in participating in those in the ways that we maybe have been before that point. And I'm having a lot more of those conversations, I feel like, with US colleagues than I was maybe 5, 10 years ago as well. I don't know if this mirrors anyone else who's working in the UK's experience either, but or Chera, if you felt similarly.
I mean, I definitely think there's been a shift in academia in the US, and everyone that's in the room can agree or not, but uh, a pessimism, but also kind of a I'm gonna stick my heels in, by golly, I'm here. Kind of like if I'm here, then by golly, I'm gonna be here, like despite it all. So I feel like there is kind of a stubborn, like, you're gonna have to pry my cold dead hands from this thing. Um, and fear that might happen. Like it's a very weird place to be in. But yeah, I do feel like there have been so many attacks, and there are these pockets though of you know like I did get funding for this symposium, but that came from my university, and so like it wouldn't have come from a national level, right? I'm not going to get a grant from the NEH because that doesn't exist right now. um and so like there are these pockets, but yeah, I think there are a lot of people kind of hunkering down and saying like we're going to do what we can and be vocal about kind of the ways in which this really sucks. Um, and yeah, that's my experience too. Yeah. I don't know, Erica, Lena, you're also impacted by this.
Yeah, I mean, oop, I feel like I can kind of hear myself echoing. Okay, that's perfect. Um, yeah, no, I mean, obviously, kind of at more of a distance, and really sort of, for my personal part, primarily just in the sense that, it's harder to stay physically close to the US in a way. It's harder to travel in and so forth. But that's an extreme kind of personal and kind of selfish perspective. Um, but yeah, I know I had this experience a few weeks ago of spending time with one of the Fulbright scholars at my university, Supriya Bailey, who had her Fulbright scholarship taken away from her. And fortunately, the Norwegian government was able to replace the funding for her so that she could still come. Um, but yeah, it was just extremely eye-opening in terms of how absolutely stark it can be in American academia right now. It was she was on like an FBI watch list. It was yeah, absolutely terrifying. So I I don't think I have anything smart to say other than that it's been a very dramatic thing to see.
Oh, and I like that Megan mentioned in the chat, like the joy. I think that yes, the joy of finding other people in the sim, like you're in a horrible boat, like yeah, but there are other people rowing beside you, so like there's actually a camaraderie and a joy to be found in that. Yeah. Lena, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I also didn't have a lot to add. I'm in Denmark and I work in Sweden, and so yeah, what I can say is that I think there's more and more an experience of sorry vulnerability. So that they, I'm gonna get the ball and then I can return. I don't know if you. Sorry.
I love that. The dog takes precedence, as it should. So someone who's missing her dog today.
Does anyone else want to share experiences about? Oh, no, Vina's already back. But be thinking if you have questions or if you also want to share experiences, I guess, of Gothic
Yes,
practice,
yes.
or if there's anything in this discussion that's resonated. Oh, we're keeping it on the chat as well. Vina, what did you want to say?
No, I just wanted to say that obviously from a Scandinavian or Nordic kind of perspective, there's also this sort of rising feeling of like vulnerability in this sort of sense that being close to Russia and no longer knowing, like these old political alliances are dying, and we might be looking at. I mean, Europe is already at war, and I think we have been in this sort of cushy, privileged position for such a long time, where our wars have taken place out there, where it's like it's the others that have paid the price. So I think there's also an awakening to one's own vulnerabilities and like this sort of again the ghosts of the past of like New World War. And so I think a sort of holding sense of Gothic repetition of what is to come next, and we thought this was not going to happen again, and asking questions of what would a perspective look like without the US as an ally, and then like so those are my very quick 2 cents, that I think that the past and war in Europe is sort of haunting as a bit of a ghostly presence and a sense of vulnerability and dying of old collectives. So then who do you align yourself with instead? Yes, those were a quick few cents.
Well, and in the chat we had a mention of justifying or trying to describe creative research in institutional terms. It's something I've had to learn to be decent at, pulling all of the kind of bibliography of like who's written about practice-based research so that I can say like, no, there's a reason you should give me money to take my students on a ghost tour of Detroit. I still can't believe I got that one by. I actually got the funding for it. Or like, yes, creative work does have a place, because again, I think we mentioned this earlier, some disciplines, like it's okay, like if you're a creative writer or if you're in the arts school, they expect artistic output. But if you're in the STEM fields, or even if you're an English professor who's not in creative writing, it's like, but why? What? How does that help the bottom line? And it's like, again, that weird like genre of learning to describe your work in such a way that makes it sound as if, well, yes, I'm being a very productive citizen here. But yeah, did we have questions? I haven't been looking at the chats.
I think we have a contribution that actually exactly on that topic from I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Mile Chapman, who says taking year off for research sabbatical. Next fall, I'll have to account for the year off and justify my partial salary and describe creative research in institutional terms. I'm grateful to have found this conversation. And yeah, I very much, I've had that same experience over the last few weeks of putting in my promotion application to hopefully at some point become a full professor, and trying to kind of describe the kind of work we do in a way that makes sense to an outside observer who isn't necessarily super sympathetic, although hopefully somewhat sympathetic. Yeah, trying to make it legible institutionally is not especially easy, although it depends a little on the institution, of course. But we also have Jan mentioning medievalist studies and the kind of the resonance there, which would be really interesting.
I was just in the International Congress for Medieval Studies in Kalamazoo earlier in May, and so I'm just seeing a lot of, and we're trying to, I think, incorporate a lot more of experiential and the sort of what you're talking about with this embodied research. And I think it reaches the public a lot more easily as well when we take this to formats that are not necessarily seen as like, that are not siloed, if you will. And that your approach is, I think, really good across the board for a lot of us. There's a lot of interest in medievalists and medievalism, and a lot of it, though, is so presented incorrectly or presented in ways that it just don't reach people as far as the actual research and what's actually there, if you will. So that's kind of, I'm just sort of seeing that what you guys are doing here can really apply across the board and can reach to the public as well and sort of remove some of those boundaries. When we talk about video essays, I've never tried one of those. That sounds really interesting. We talk about getting on and presenting, even blog posts where, you know, you get something like what you're doing right now to the public, to where people can get more involved if there's interest at all. I think there's a lot of interest in the Gothic. I think there's a lot of interest in medieval and medievalisms. Every time I mention that I've studied Beowulf to my students, they are like, but how we bring it in and how do we present it? And so part of what the lone medievalists at the Congress were doing was talking about issues like that. How do we bring it in more in a way that's grounded in what we do and grounded in academic integrity, but still accessible? And I think what you're talking about brings a lot of opportunities to that. So that was just my thought.
Well, and that dovetails nicely with the question about incorporating Gothic practice into the classroom. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about that. Oh, hey, Jess, there you are. I mean, I can talk about it, but I'd love to hear.
The idea of Gothic practices in the classroom it's something that comes up in the special issue. I think in particular in Lucinda Rasmussen's contribution, which is kind of very much centered around a specific particular class, where she did some really cool things in terms of working with Gothic editorial practice and having students create a very kind of weird edited version of a literary text. So that struck me as one really fun and interesting approach.
Yeah, so doesn't she takes Carmen Maria Machado's Carmilla, edited text of Carmilla, which is itself like a fictional editorial text, and then asks them to do, I want to say Camp Damascus. It's a Chuck Tingle book.
It's Camp Damascus.
Yeah, so highly recommend.
But yeah, I mean, Cher, of course, what you're describing, I think, in your own work is also very much an instance of Gothic practice in the classroom.
Yeah, and we'll be hearing from some of my students throughout the symposium, but I will say, like, for me, it's been very much kind of tied to this idea of hidden histories and ghost stories and like doing deep dives, and kind of telling students, like, you can do traditional papers, but if you also wanted to do a graphic novel, or if you wanted to, one of them did, she ended up writing a travel log in the style of the supposed ghost, things like that. But it is a very, I will say, it is a very hands-on, involved process. Like I did a lot of talking to people and stuff like that, but it was very much worth it. But also, this was an upper division uh, undergraduate graduate course, so it wasn't like a introductory gen ed course where I would have to do Gothic practice a bit differently. But yes, and I'm thinking also, like, Lena, it's not exactly, I mean, you have the monster lab, so like you're constantly doing kind of pedagogical stuff.
Yeah, we have the monster lab which is like coming together of teachers and students and everyone interested. And I think Mia and Erica and their colleague Sarah Ording have also been writing on monster pedagogy. And I think that, to me, when I think of Gothic practice in the classroom, I think I primarily think of it as a teaching philosophy as well. So this idea that thinking about otherness and difference, and especially vulnerability. And I just recently wrote an article on supervision and vulnerability and monsters, and how, which comes back to what I've already mentioned, this whole domestication process we go into when we start doing stuff where we start out here and everything's possible. And then that's also the case for supervision, when a student comes to the supervisor and says, yes, I want to do this, and it seems like everything could potentially be possible. And then they go into this domestication process together with their supervisor, like, yes, how do we make this amazing idea pass as a thesis while still staying somehow true to what you wanted to do. And yeah, I just had a really lovely like peer reviewer who kind of called me out on some things, because I was like, yeah, I always let them find like the monsters in their research, and then we smuggle them in and stuff. And then she sort of reminded me that for some students that's going to be much more difficult than others, because some are already monsterized to a point where trying to play the system, you're already suspicious. To start out with, people are going to look through your baggage in a way that they're not going to do it with other students. So any kind of creative idea you have, or any kind of slight deviance, will be judged so much harsher. But I think monster theory and like a monster pedagogy and a monster or a Gothic practice, I think that also works really well as a kind of teaching philosophy, perhaps also as a theme and a tool in the classroom, but maybe also as a philosophy behind the teaching. Megan, you have unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off that and say that what I like about that approach, and that kind of consideration of vulnerability and care, also echoes what I liked, again, to plug another contributor to the special issue, Sophia State's contribution, because they write about children's Gothic, not just kind of looking at children's literature and the Gothic, but actually looking at the kinds of Gothic practice that children have. And I think part of what we need to do better at in the academy, and that kind of helps us, with that teaching, but helps us reach publics and all of that different kind of stuff, is to take more seriously the things that are happening outside of the academy. So like Jack Halberson's work around low criticism, for instance, is something that comes up often in discussion for us, but really not just to say like, well, how can we get people outside of the academy to take us more seriously, but for us to really take more seriously the work that is happening in those kinds of spaces with our students, who are still kind of the most diverse, like ethnically, gender-wise, everything, the most diverse community in higher education, and to kind of be always seeking outside of that, the institution as well, for what it means to do Gothic practice, or for what critical research or rigorous research looks like. And yeah, shout out to Sam Hurst's Romancing the Gothic, which has appeared in the chat, and which is an absolutely fantastic Gothic studies resource that is largely operates outside of institutional spaces.
there any other questions or comments or?
Just about, several people mentioned this question of accessibility,
Mhm.
and I do wonder if they fear that, like, oh, well, if we do these creative things, it will make things more accessible. Because I do think there is this kind of gatekeeping thing in academia.
Mhm.
So I wonder if in part some of the pushback is just like, well, one, we've never done it like this before, and then two, if we do it like this, does it give more people access to it in a way that we don't like?
So could you hear the question?
Yeah, I could hear the question.
Okay.
That's a good
So
question.
yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'll answer from me. I think opening things up to like creative responses and still saying like, yes, you do have to like, you have to have some research here, some sources, but I've really been pleased with seeing students who maybe didn't feel as comfortable with a traditional research essay still doing the research, but going off in a way that like it's clear like they needed this. Uh, and I think there is something to the fact that like as academics, I think we come from a long line of people who are like, this is how my forefathers trained me, so this is how I will be trained. And we're all being trained, at least in the US, for this job that no longer exists, right? Like we go through our PhD factory, we get our professorship, and yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. And I think rethinking uh like the ways in which people can accomplish academia um does open it up. But I think also you run the risk of also I think it can be intimidating. There are students who really don't want to draw or write poetry. And maybe it's because they've never done it before, maybe it's because they've done it before. And so I do think yes, there is an opening, but also there are ways in which it can be I don't want to say it shuts things down, but it can intimidate. Yeah.
I think, yeah, sort of related to that. I think almost just like in a purely neutral sense, academia really is sort of based on gatekeeping in the sense that, you do well enough at something and somebody judges that you've done a good enough job, and then you get a degree or you get a position or you get a particular status. And that's sort of structurally just completely inherent to it. And sort of just as a tiny example of what you're describing, I know something we've found hard at our university when we've started to work more with creative forms of assessment, for instance, like video essays, which we've started increasingly working with, kind of like videographic criticism. One of the tricky things about it is that it requires the people assessing it to have, some competence within that creative work. And it also requires, and there isn't necessarily that much kind of overlap between the academic skills that you can expect people to have and that creative skill set. And it also requires you to find, a new idea of what it would mean to do that work rigorously and well. Like you can't just straightforwardly apply the standard academic ideas of what, good work would be to it. So it creates friction and it makes things more difficult in a world in which, we often just don't want things to be more difficult because things are difficult enough. I think that's part of it. But still doing it.
Oh, thank you for that, Megan, in the chat. There, for those of you in the room, there's just this last month been a report on university education worldwide stating that essentially one, more people are participating, but inequalities remain very similar. So, yay, but also,
Well, I liked your point, Shara, that doing things creatively doesn't necessarily make them more accessible. I guess we have this perception that the more varieties of something that we add, the more accessible it will be to more people, which on the one hand is true, but on the other, as an interdisciplinary scholar, just means that you have that many more skills to learn or things, ways to have to sell yourself as a researcher as well, which is definitely a challenge that I think all of us in the special issue came up with at one point or another, of trying to like say, well, this is the creative element, this is the academic element, and how do we square those? How do we defend those?
We've still got a little bit of time, but we're coming close to the end. And I still welcome any questions from the room or the chat. But if no one has one, I have one. I like how I set that up, right? Like, you can ask a question, but but no, and this is kind of a wide open one, but did someone have something?
No, I just really quickly wanted to say thank you to people for their interest in the Monster Lab in the chat.
Oh yeah,
I'm very touched. And if you are at all interested in coming, like being on our what's it called, the mailing list, you can always just send me an email and I'll put you on the mailing list. And there's also
okay. I love it. I have students in the back waving, going yes.
Yeah, that was just quickly it. Thank you so much for it's just very touching, because we are quite young. We've just been doing this for 2 years, so it's always very nice when people they take an interest. So thank you for that.
We have a question in the room. Yeah.
Have you guys ever if you have dressing golf, can we see your outfit?
Oh, any of us dressed in Gothic outfits? Or yeah. Yeah, we've got some good dressing like going.
I'm wearing normcore today. I wish I could. My outfit is so boring.
Well, and I was going to say, Karen Smith, who's going to be presenting
traditional kind of.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think I'm up and show you guys.
Yeah.
Like, really
she's going to bring it up. But Karen Smith, who's going to be presenting soon, her presentation is all about becoming a goth and the goth clubs.
Well, okay, I'll just say that later.
We also have Gladys tomorrow.
Yes, we also have Gladys tomorrow. Yes, who does Gothic makeup. Yes. So awesome picture there. I don't think any of you got to see it. If you want to hold it up to the owl, they can see it online. Yeah.
Or you can,
Where am I?
right up to that camera.
Okay. It's just.
Oh yeah, it sees you.
Oh,
wait, yeah.
Come a little closer, or put it a little closer.
Oh, it's just a couple of pictures. This is like
wait,
one.
Move it to the left. No, wait,
okay.
yeah.
Up, there we go.
Up,
there we go.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
It's just of just
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like, I would not have known that's a real person. It looks like art.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, and then we have from Jan, it comes to mind that we don't have to defend having to take on tech skills, but artistic skills. Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's it too. Like, a goth makeup seminar, like, could we justify that in an academic symposium versus like something coding? I would have much easier time with the coding, right, than with the Gothic makeup. Although I think we could make, definitely a justification. Yeah. Everyone's saying cool pictures. So, lots of hearts. So final question I wanted to leave things with was just kind of, where are we hoping this goes? And kind of like, where are we hoping it takes us or the community or the world, or like, yeah. What is our hope for Gothic practice?
I hope that it goes back to being small but interconnected. So I feel like there's often this pressure for things to get bigger and bigger and bigger and more exciting, but I like the smallness of the act of making. And so I want everyone to be able to go on doing small things with Gothic Practice after this big special issue comes out. And maybe there'll be more big things as well, but let's not lose the small one.
I really like that. Yeah, going against the growth imperative. I do think it's something that I hope more people will be interested in doing, and that we'll be able to, you know, keep collaborating both with the members of, or the people who contributed to the special issue, but also those who didn't. But yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, for my part, that my research will just kind of continue to get weirder and weirder and weirder the more time goes by, and that I'll get to continue to do it with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when it comes to the special issue, I just hope it's going to go out there and do its own thing, and that we're all going to be surprised at how other people are going to be reading it. And it's not at all going to be what we expected. So I just hope it's going to go out there and live its best monstrous life. And thank you to all contributors here who have been part of making it what it is. And I'm sure it's going to go out there and do something we did not see coming at all.
And I guess I will add, oh, yeah.
I'm just curious, so your Internet Ghost Collective, right? For this little group, right? And it's grown from there. About how many people contribute to it?
Well, the Internet Ghost Collective is 4 people.
It's just the 4 of
It's
you?
just the 4 of us.
Okay.
The special issue, how many people are in the special issue?
I
Four
should know this.
looking at each other going,
It's more than 12.
I was gonna say 13.
That would be nice if it was 13.
We're gonna say 13.
It also depends what you count as a contributor.
Yeah.
Did the editors contribute to the issue? Will the typesetters have all of you now contributed to the issue by talking to us about it? Where does it end?
And where can we find the issue when it comes out? It's Gothic Studies. So if you're at Wayne State, it is not available via our libraries, but I will have a copy so you can find me. But hopefully your institution has a subscription to it, electronic or otherwise. But if you don't, for some reason, let one of us know. Is Erica checking the table of contents?
I wasn't, but I will be now.
Oh, okay. While you're doing that, I was just going to say, in terms of the future, I hope to meet other like-minded people. That has really been one of my joys over the past several years, is meeting other people who do small, weird things and who like to think about things differently and are like, hey, we should go to a goth club, or we should go ghost hunting. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. And so I want to keep meeting those people wherever they are. Yeah. So that's my hope. Do we have a count, Rika?
I have been unable to find it. I'm sorry.
We're gonna
A
go with 13.
monster escape. Yeah, let's say 13.
But yeah,
That's the official.
yeah, it should be available sometime in the coming months on the University of Edinburgh website or through the International Gothic Association as well. Any final thoughts before we end this session and get ready for the next one?
Thank you so much to everyone for asking wonderful questions.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you
for the invitation, Jara.
Yes, and thank you, Internet Ghost Collective, my dear friends, for participating. Stick around. Our next session is going to be 2 contributors. One of them is in the room. Actually, both of them may be in the room. Yeah. Hannah Singleton and Karen Smith will be talking about their work, which is going to be in the issue. It should be a lot of fun. That is going to be at 11:15 our time in Detroit. I have no idea. It will be 15 after wherever you are. But hope to see you then. And thanks again.